Attention, brave souls. What you're about to witness might make your heart race. Before the suspense takes over your screen, click subscribe now and hit the like button. Get ready for a spine-chilling experience. But be warned, only the boldest will survive until the end.
Hello, and thank you for giving me the chance to share my story. My name is Captain Richard Thornton, a retired Navy SEAL. I'm 67 years old now, but the events I'm about to recount happened when I was just 29. I've lived a lot of life, seen things most people couldn't dream of or survive, but nothing, and I mean nothing, haunts me more than what I faced in the Pine Barrens in the summer of 1987. What I'm about to tell you is not just a story, it's a warning to stay away from what you don't understand, to respect the boundaries between the known and the unknown. Because if you cross them, like I did, you might not come back the same, if you come back at all. It started like any other mission, a routine, reconnaissance assignment. That's how they framed it anyway. My team and I were tasked with investigating strange radio transmissions emanating from deep within the Pine Barrens, a sprawling, desolate forest in southern New Jersey. The government was vague about the details, as they often were. Maybe it was a smuggling operation, maybe a rogue militia, something we were trained to handle. But from the moment we arrived, something felt off. The Pine Barrens isn't your typical forest. It's vast, silent, and ancient, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. The air was heavy with the smell of pine and damp earth, but there was an underlying rot, something that felt unnatural, like decay that didn't belong. We set up camp just before nightfall in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. My team was small, just 5 of us: Lieutenant Marks, a wary guy with a sharp mind; Dawson, our comm specialist, always cracking jokes to break the tension; Harris, the muscle of the group, a no-nonsense guy who didn't scare easily; and Carter, the youngest and least experienced, eager to prove himself. We were tight-knit professionals. We trusted each other, but trust doesn't matter much when fear takes hold. That first night, the forest was unnervingly quiet. No insects, no rustling leaves, just silence. It was the kind of silence that crawls under your skin, that makes you feel like you're being watched. Dawson, trying to lighten the mood, said, "Give us even the crickets are scared of this place." Nobody laughed. As the hours stretched on, we started hearing things. At first, it was faint, a rustling in the distance, like something moving between the trees. Then came the sounds of twigs snapping, closer this time. Harris dismissed it as deer, but Marks wasn't so sure. "Deer don't watch you," he muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the darkness. And then there were the eyes. Around midnight, as we took turns on watch, Carter froze, his flashlight trembling in his hand. "Sapton," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I saw something." I followed his gaze and saw them, 2 glowing red orbs, like embers in the blackness, staring at us from the tree line. They didn't move. They didn't blink. They just watched. My first instinct was to dismiss it as a reflection, maybe an animal. But deep down, I knew better. We trained our weapons on the spot, but when Carter stepped forward, the eyes vanished. No sound, no movement, just gone. We searched the area but found nothing. No tracks, no sign of anything. That's when I started to feel it, the creeping dread, the sense that we weren't alone, that whatever was out there wasn't afraid of us. The second night was worse. We decided to stay another day to complete the mission. Big mistake. By then, the forest felt alive, like it was watching us, waiting for something. Our radios started malfunctioning, filling with static and strange, faint whispers that none of us could explain. Dawson joked that it sounded like someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Nobody laughed this time, and then Harris disappeared. It happened during his watch, around 2 a.m. I woke up to find his gear still by the fire, his rifle untouched. He wouldn't have wandered off. He was too disciplined for that. We searched for hours, calling his name, but the forest swallowed our voices. No echo, no response, just that suffocating silence. Then we found it, about 100 yards from camp. There was a patch of ground torn to shreds, like something heavy had been dragged through the dirt. There were claw marks gouged through the trees, marks too deep and too wide to be made by any animal I knew of. And there was blood. Not much, but enough to confirm that whatever happened to Harris wasn't natural. Carter broke down, shaking and muttering about the stories we'd heard from the locals, about the Jersey Devil. I didn't believe in that nonsense, at least, not then. But looking at those marks, I didn't have an explanation. We returned to camp, but we were different now. The team was cracking, the fear spreading like a disease, and I felt it too, that cold, primal terror. Something was hunting us, and it wasn't done yet. If only I'd known then what I know now, I would have called off the mission, packed up, and run as far from that cursed forest as possible. But I didn't. And what happened next is why I'll never step foot in the pine barrens again. This was just the beginning. I remember the moment the forest swallowed us whole. It wasn't gradual, like the sun slipping below the horizon. No, it was sudden, as if something had flipped a switch. The air grew colder, denser, almost suffocating. The familiar sounds of nature, crickets, rustling leaves, vanished, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed against my ears. We called out for Mason, the team member who had vanished during his patrol. Our voices echoed unnaturally through the trees, as if the forest mocked us. I radioed him repeatedly, my voice calm despite the unease gripping my chest. "This is Captain Thornton. Mason, do you copy?" Nothing, only static. The others were restless. Carter, our sniper, was pacing, his rifle gripped tightly. Ramirez, our medic, muttered under his breath, a prayer in Spanish I didn't recognize. Even Johnson, the team's jokester, was uncharacteristically silent, his eyes darting to every shadow. We moved as a unit, advancing into the thick underbrush where Mason's last position had been logged. The ground was soft and uneven, our boots sinking slightly with every step. The flashlight beams cut through the darkness, but the light seemed muted, swallowed by the forest. Then we found it. Mason's gear, his rifle, his pack, even his helmet, lay scattered across the ground. The way it was spread out, it didn't make sense. It was as if he had been dragged. Deep grooves in the dirt confirmed it, leading into the denser part of the woods. "Jesus," Johnson whispered. "What could have done this? No animals could have dragged him off this clean." Carter added, his voice tight, "Not like this. Stay focused," I ordered, though my stomach churned. Eyes sharp. We moved together. But as we followed the tracks, an unnatural smell hit us. A sickly sweet stench that clung to the back of my throat. It was a mix of decay and sulfur, and it only grew stronger the farther we went. That's when we heard it. A low, guttural growl, faint at first but growing louder. It didn't sound like any animal I'd ever encountered, not even during my tours overseas. It was a sound that vibrated in my chest, primal and wrong. "Captain," Ramirez said, his voice trembling. "We shouldn't be here." Before I could respond, something moved. A blur of motion at the edge of the flashlight beams, too fast to make out. The team spun, weapons raised, scanning the darkness. "Did anyone see that?" Carter hissed. "I don't know what I saw," Johnson replied, his voice barely a whisper. And then it hit us. Not physically, at least not yet, but a wave of fear so intense it felt like a living thing. It was in our heads, a primal instinct screaming at us to run. But I held my ground. I had to. "Hold your positions," I barked, though my hands shook on my rifle. The growl came again, this time closer. Too close. Then I saw them. Two red eyes, glowing like embers, staring at us from the darkness. They were unblinking, filled with a malice that chilled me to my core. "Open fire," I shouted. The forest exploded in gunfire. Muzzle flashes lit up the trees, and the air filled with the deafening roar of rifles. But the thing, it moved through the chaos, darting between the trees, its shape indistinct yet monstrous. Carter was the first to fall. Something hit him, hard, and he was gone, dragged screaming into the shadows. His cries were cut short, replaced by that awful silence. Panic set in. Ramirez broke formation, running blindly into the woods despite my shouts to stay together. Johnson followed, his fear overriding reason. "Stay with me," I yelled, but it was no use. I was alone now, my flashlight beam shaking as I scanned the darkness. The creature's growl surrounded me, echoing from every direction. It was toying with me, drawing me deeper into its domain. I pressed forward, clutching my rifle, my breath shallow and rapid. My training told me to stay calm, to think logically, but logic didn't apply here. This was something else, something beyond human comprehension. Then I saw it, the Jersey Devil. Its form was a grotesque amalgamation of nightmare and myth. Leathery wings stretched wide, casting monstrous shadows in the faint light. Its cloven hooves dug into the earth, and its elongated snout revealed rows of jagged teeth. But it was the eyes that held me, those burning red eyes that seemed to pierce straight through my soul. It charged. I fired, round after round, the bullets tearing through the night, but they didn't stop it. It moved with an unnatural speed, its scream a mix of rage and agony. It was on me in seconds, its claws raking the air as I dove to the side. I hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of me. My rifle was gone, lost in the chaos. I scrambled to my feet, pulling my sidearm, just as the creature lunged again. This time, I aimed for its eyes. The shot connected. The thing screamed, a sound so piercing it felt like it would split my skull. It reeled back, wings flapping wildly, and for a moment I thought I might survive. I ran. My body moved on instinct, adrenaline pushing me through the forest as the creature's cries faded behind me. I didn't stop until I broke through the tree line, collapsing onto the cold, hard ground of a dirt road. When I looked back, the forest was silent once more. I was alive, but the others, they were gone, and so was a part of me. I sit here now, decades removed from that 1987, but the weight of it bears down on me like a wet, heavy shroud. Time doesn't heal all wounds. It only dulls the edges, makes them easier to carry, until moments like this, when the memories rush back with brutal clarity. The pine barrens, the thick, endless expanse of trees, the air that seemed alive, pressing against my skin, whispering to me in ways I didn't understand. Even now, the mere thought of it chills me to the bone. I never thought I'd speak about it. The Navy made sure of that. Classified, they said, debriefed me until their faces blurred together, told me to move on. Forget. I wanted to. God, I wanted to forget. But some things don't let you. They linger. In the dark. In the quiet. They breathe down your neck when you're alone. I was the only one who made it out of those woods. I don't think about that often. Not because I don't want to, but because I can't. The guilt. It's unbearable. Every face from my team is etched into my memory, their laughter, their trust in me as their leader. I failed them. I know that. I've spent the last 40 years wondering if things would have been different if I had made one different decision. Just one. But there's another truth. One I've never told anyone. Not even in the darkest moments of my mandatory therapy sessions. I wasn't just running from the forest that night. I was running from it. The Jersey Devil, or whatever that thing was. The locals had their stories, passed down through generations, but no words could prepare me for the thing I saw with my own eyes. The leathery wings that seemed to blot out the moonlight. The twisted, malformed body that didn't belong in this world. And those eyes. God, those eyes. When I close my own eyes at night, I see them. Burning red, glowing like embers in the pitch black dark. They didn't just watch me. They looked through me, into me, as if it knew every secret, every fear I'd ever buried deep. It wasn't just an animal. It was something else, something I'll never fully understand. Something ancient, malicious. The Navy told me I was hallucinating. Trauma-induced delusions, they called it. They gave me pills and time off and told me to move on. They didn't care about the things I described, the sounds I heard, the way the forest seemed to change around us, the whispers in the wind, the snapping of branches when no one was there. But I know what I saw. I've spent years trying to convince myself it wasn't real, that it was my mind playing tricks on me in the aftermath of losing my team. But every so often, when the world is quiet, I hear it again. The same low, guttural growl, faint as if carried on the wind. It's a sound no animal could make, and it always sends a shiver straight down my spine. I don't live far from the woods. Not the pine barrens, but a forest just the same. I moved here thinking I could reclaim some semblance of peace. But sometimes, when I look out at the tree line in the dead of night, I see shadows moving where they shouldn't. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see those red eyes staring back. I wonder if it followed me. I wonder if it's waiting for me. They say you can never outrun your past. I think they're right. You can bury it, hide it, lie to yourself about it, but it's always there, waiting. And when it resurfaces, it doesn't come back gently. It claws its way out, dragging you down with it. I tell you this story not for sympathy. I don't want your pity. And I sure as hell don't want your judgment. I tell it because I have to. Because I need you to know that the world isn't what you think it is. There are things out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for you to stray too far from the path. And when you do, they'll find you. They always do. As I sit here now, the room feels colder, the air heavier. My breath fogs the window as I glance outside, into the stillness of the night. The woods are quiet, too quiet. I can't see anything unusual, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Watching, waiting. The Navy told me to move on, forget. But some things don't let you forget, and some things, they don't let you go. If you ever find yourself in the Pine Barrens, or any place where the trees grow too thick, and the silence presses too hard, remember my words. Some truths are better left buried. Some horrors are better left alone.